Okay, I believe we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekend Wind Down with business coach Nancy. I am here with Angela Pointon. Angela is a keynote speaker and an authority on making you the authority, right? As a marketing coach, correct?
That's right.
Cheers. Let's everybody cheers. Weekend Wind Down, man. This was a long week, so I'm going to take a sip and just let everyone know what's been going on in my world. I mean, basically, I always try to take Fridays off, right? And when I say off, and I teach my clients to do this, I don't really mean off completely, but I can mix some personal things in there with some business stuff and work on the items that I haven't really been able to focus on all during the week while I'm helping clients grow their businesses. It's my time to sort of grow my business and really put the thought and meet with my staff and all that kind of fun stuff. So I've been really busy today, bouncing from one staff to another staff to another staff, putting together case studies of my successful clients and putting together presentations for travel that I'm doing in the future. So yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy day, but welcome everyone. As you're coming on, I will say hello. So hi, Jen. Says hi to me and hi to you, Angela. And Kelly, oh, you haven't been here in a while. How are you feeling? Nice to see you here. So anyway, let's get right into this, Angela, because I think this is a really important subject, and I think it's really hard for so many people. And it's how to make themselves an authority in this very crowded interior design market. But before you give us some advice on that, tell us a little bit about your background.
Thanks, Nancy, and I'm so grateful to be here. Appreciate the time and getting to talk to you. So I come from a creative background too, although it was not interior design. Quick, 2 minutes on me. I actually applied to college to be an interior design major, and then changed my major before I actually started. So the summer before school to photography. I ended up graduating with a photography degree, but decided my senior year, not so conveniently, that I really didn't want to be a photographer for my income. I didn't want to make my living that way. And what really fascinated me was marketing and business. And I really thought marketing and business for creative people was really cool. I ended up working for a photo agent in Manhattan and got to represent some really awesome photographers up there. And so I always dreamt of kind of marrying those fields together. Doing marketing for creative people is, what could be better than that when they're both your passions, right? So I ended up having my own consultancy and help photographers do marketing and run their businesses better. You and I got connected because I am branching out and now working with all sorts of entrepreneurs on the marketing effort. Still, my true love is creative entrepreneurs, but I now own a digital marketing agency and did some networking with one of the folks that you're connected with, and she introduced us. So that's how this came to be. But I'm just so excited to speak with this audience because I think a lot of the challenges that creative entrepreneurs have, it doesn't matter what field you're in, you'll find they're very common across all creative fields. That idea of, I really want to be a creative, but I have to be an entrepreneur too. And I have to market my business too. And how do you do all that while trying to differentiate yourself and be different from the other people that are in your market?
Yeah, it's really a tough one because when people come to me, they always start out with, but I can design any space. I'm a designer. I'm an interior designer. I can design residential, commercial, although some of them like one or the other more. But even when it comes to the residential, it could be a young person, an old person, an empty nester, a single person, a married couple, a family. And I'm always known for niche is rich and broad is broke. And if you can niche down to a specific demographic that you're talking to or a specific service, to me, it's much easier to become the expert in your field. You always know what to say because you know who you're talking to. You're not just talking to everyone.
Yes, agreed. So this is really hard for people who are just starting out, because at that stage in the business, let's be realistic, you kind of, unless you inherited a boatload of money, which is super cool, you kind of have to just take what you can get. And also part of it is experience, right? You know, there's a learning point of how did this client engagement go versus this one, and what do I enjoy most? That's figuring out the niche. That's really important. Once you're beyond that point, you're absolutely right. There is so much strength in defining your niche as specifically as you can. Here's why. It's not just because people will see you as the expert for those things, which is really important. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that during this discussion, but it's also about how you market to them. It's really difficult to, go to all the places where people who will hire an interior designer will be. It's a lot easier to say, I'm going to focus on, seniors who are downsizing, and be present either on social media or face-to-face with the places that those folks go to, and get into those networks and build those relationships. It's super hard. You can't spread yourself thin enough to try and do that across the board.
Yes.
It's just, from a marketing activity perspective, it's next to impossible, right? And so that's why going thin restricts you from really making inroads in any one market. And going deep in a niche is just a beautiful thing from a marketability and from being seen as the authority in that niche too.
So how do you help people? I know how I help them, but I want to hear from you. How do you help them identify their niche so that they can become the authority in that area?
Yeah, so the way I see it is people typically fall into two categories. At least this is what I've experienced. People either want to be known for something that is not specific enough, and I'll give you an example of that, or people want to be known for disparate things that are not really the same. So let's tackle the first example first. So I want to be known as the best interior designer in Manhattan. Okay, let's just say that, or in your town, wherever the listeners are. The problem with that kind of message, and we'll hear that a lot, right? I want to be known as the person with the best designs, or the best customer service, or just being a rock star. The problem is no other interior designer wants to be seen as the worst, having the worst customer service, or not being a rock star.
Right.
And so even though you've said something that you feel might be specific, it really is not specific at all. And everybody is saying the same thing, right? So that's one side. The other side is the disparate nature. So I want to be known for being the top in senior downsizing design and commercial. Those two things rarely overlap. And it's really hard to make inroads into both and being known as both, right?
Yeah.
So those are typically the conversations that I have with folks is, all right, that's a great place to start. Now let's get more specific. So there's typically three things that you want to identify when you're identifying your niche. One is, who is the market? What are what's the makeup of the whatever you're going after? Is it commercial businesses in your town? What is it? The other is, what about your process or how you do things serves that market? And three, what are people getting out of that service that's different from other people? So you see, when a rock star interior designer did not go deep at all, right? We don't know who that person is serving. We don't know how their process helps make them a rock star, and we certainly don't know the outcomes that they're achieving through their help for people. So when we answer those questions, when individuals answer those questions for themselves, we can start to get really specific about what they enjoy and what they've seen through their work with clients come to fruition.
And the fear that comes up when you're going through that exercise is incredible. And I've told this story before that I'm a business coach. I coach many types of businesses, but most people don't know that unless they've heard me on Weekend Wind Down say it before. But I market to interior designers. That's my niche. But what happens is when you market and become the authority in that one niche, inevitably other people hear you, see you, come across you, especially when you splash the internet the way I've splashed it. And they come to you and they say, I know you specialize in interior design, but I like your messaging and I like the way you deliver the information. And I'm wondering if you can help me also. And the same thing happens with interior designers. So you may market to newlyweds, let's say, which may not be the best market because they don't always have money, but you may market to newlyweds. But if someone else hears your message and just relates to the way you're delivering it, they may come to you and go, I know you specialize in newlyweds, but could you help us too? We're a young family or some other demographic. The reason why they're coming to you is because your message is so clear. And when you're giving a message globally, sometimes it gets muddled. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think it also, you touch on a really important point, which is, I think the fear that you're talking about is if I define myself as this, no one else will ever hire me.
Yes.
And that is definitely not true. And depending on how you wish to run your business, if somebody says, I know you do X, but would you consider doing Y with me? It's really up to you to say yes or no. If you want the extra business, you say yes. If you really want to concentrate on that niche and that niche alone, you say, this isn't right for me, but I have somebody in mind that I might refer you to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
To the same regard, when you niche down for your referral partners, your architects, your furniture, whomever is in your network, that's a strong referral for you, it's easier for them to refer you. When they know exactly the type of client that you're looking for, you're going to get better referrals because those people know exactly what to look out for when they're thinking of you. It's just clear for everyone.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. When you are not clear in your marketing message, you're kind of like the authority of nothing in particular, right?
Yeah.
So how do people establish their authority? So they pick a niche,
they pick
or a favorite stream of business that they consistently enjoy.
Yes.
And then what do they do?
What next, right? So the main most important thing is defining those 3 points. I say over and over again, once you say I'm the authority in this, you're it. Now, there's cascading marketing that happens, which we'll talk about, but very few people are going to challenge you in you selecting your niche and to be the authority in that niche, right? Once you pick it, you're it. So now it's about how do you market to that authority? What are the things that you need to look for in order to make that impression upon people? The first is the most obvious, which is your website, your biggest piece of marketing material ever.
Mm-hmm.
And really evaluating your site and saying, is the imagery that I'm representing here, is the messaging that I'm saying on my main headline conveying, I do this for these people, these are the benefits, and this is the experience I provide. Is that really clear on your website? Because if it's just a bunch of different images of past work in your portfolio, that's not going to be clear for people, right? So you need to make that super duper clear. The stumbling block that people sometimes have is their body of work in that niche. So I really like this one client that I did work for. Their project came out amazing, and I just want more of that, right? So Now, how do I build a body of work in that so that I can show that I have depth of experience in that arena? There's multiple ways to go about that. The two that are most top of mind is either taking on a project as either pro bono or discounted just to get the portfolio piece for you because that's of value to you in your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
The other is like partnering with maybe a vendor or something and going in on a project together where maybe you're not bearing the total cost of producing it yourself, but you're getting that portfolio piece somewhere else. So in the photography world, for me, what that meant was doing a promo shoot, right? Creating the piece that wanted to be in your portfolio. You just didn't get paid to do it. It was a self-promotional piece. So I'm sure there's ways to do that in the interior design market, working with other partners. So those are the two easiest ways to represent that body of work. From there, from a marketing perspective, there's many other ways to create the impression that you're the authority. The things that I would think about for the audience listening today would be, what's going to establish me as the biggest authority? Who can I align myself with to be seen as top dog in this space? So maybe it's trying to get on a panel for an association that represents that niche that you're going after.
Mm-hmm.
Or on a panel at an event with partners who serve that niche you're going after. Maybe it's your own keynote speaking gig or something like that. Maybe you do a webinar with a painter or a line of fabric or something that serves that market. I mean, there's so many ways to partner up with people. The reason why I bring partners into the picture as early on as possible, and don't be shy to stay away from the big guns in the niche within which you're thinking about, is because they have lists. They have audiences of people that could use your services. And when you couple with them and you co-market something, you're going to get more eyeballs on your website, on your social media, on everything that you do to market yourself. And so, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, it's so true. I mean, that's how I built my whole business, both businesses as an art consultant prior to this and this business, is by partnering with people. And doing Weekend Wind Down is a partnering program.
Right.
Right. So I partner with other people who serve in the industry, sometimes bigger people, sometimes people who are just starting to break in. It doesn't matter to me. I'm providing value. I'm also getting exposure. And as an interior designer, you can partner with plumbing supply companies, high-end plumbing supply companies. You can partner with boutiques in your neighborhood. Anybody who's serving your demographic also. If you can find any common ground, you can partner with them to do presentations. They can send out to their list that you're doing a presentation for their location. And then those people who come, those are new leads for you.
Yes.
And it's scary for people sometimes to do presentations when they really have never done them before. But if you read and listen to people who have done this in the past, their first couple of presentations were probably not so good. But it doesn't mean they didn't get business.
Right.
And each time you do it, you get more confident. And I love the fact, it could be joint Facebook Lives, joint webinars, your solo webinars teaching things, solo Facebook Lives. There's so many ways to get yourself out there. And let's say you're not a video person. You can do blog exchanges.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, if you don't like speaking, guest blogging is a wonderful opportunity to get traffic to your site. If you have at least one portfolio piece or something that you can tell a story about, and it contained pieces from other people, pitching that as a collaborative case study on the other partner's website and having just one link back to your website in the about or the bio section below the blog is phenomenal for you and for traffic and for Google to see that you have inbound links to your site is a very positive thing. So it's a good point for people who really are just petrified of speaking.
Yeah, because usually someone does have a strength either speaking or writing. You know, usually it's one or the other they're more comfortable with, let's say, even though you may not consider yourself really good at it. You may be and just don't give yourself credit for it. But the thing is that these places are always looking for content in addition to being a podcast guest on different podcasts, right? So you're getting your name out there in these other avenues. And if you're a residential interior designer or contractor or stager, anyone who's listening owns a home or an apartment that may need design work. And these are all things that then you can share on your social media. This is exposure that you're getting. And it's really, though, thinking outside the box, right? It's not like we're naming a bunch of things, but in the end, you have to do your research and figure out where can you add value, and then how do you pitch yourself to that?
Yeah, absolutely. The pitching is actually, I feel like the research is the harder part. So let's talk about pitching a little bit.
Okay.
I do help people who've established their authority, they're keynote speakers, they've written books. I mean, that's the type of client I would work with one-on-one. We would then pitch on their behalf. So I have experience with pitching. It might sound like those people have a ton of notoriety behind them and wind in their sails, but they're just the same as you and me. They're all just looking for publicity, and sometimes, even though they have a lot of body of work to back it up, people don't read it anyway, right? They're not really paying attention. So really, when you pitch, the most important thing to pay attention to is what that person publishes. So if it's a podcast, you got to listen to a couple of their podcasts. If they write articles, you better read some of the articles. When you pitch them, the best way to do it is, let's say it's an email pitch. You've captured their email address. You write 3 paragraphs about their last few podcasts or articles, right?
3 paragraphs?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the podcast about blah, 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 blah. I learned this. Oh, and by the way, another one of my favorites was blah, 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 blah. I mean, you're flattering them and showing that you have done your homework.
Interesting, because I tend to be more cut and dry. Like, I would rather not read 3 paragraphs before someone says, like, I'd like to be on Weekend Wind Down. I'd rather, like, I've seen your Weekend Wind Down. I think I'd be a great guest. This is who I am. What do you think? Is more my style. I tend not to be so verbose.
Yeah, I think I would be verbose at first. I would be I'd do the 3 paragraphs. I'd make the last line of it my pitch. And then if they don't reply to that, I would send another email that's more like your style as another follow-up. And by the way, I would send an email in your style, not just once, but 3 or 4 times after the initial email went.
Really?
I think people who have podcasts where they are getting a lot of pitches every day are looking for somebody who has taken the time to really care about their content and study it and show how they feel that they're relevant. And I know people who run podcasts who get pitched all the time. I don't know if you feel this way, but I think it's very easy to become numb to, I know you didn't listen to it. Like, I know you're just like me and 3 other people today, delete. So if you take the time to show that you care, for the people who get pitched a lot, for the bigger shows and the bigger content, it might break through some noise for you.
That's actually a really good point. So yeah, I get pitched mostly on my blogs, that they want to do a guest blog for, onto my site, or they want me to reference their blog in one of my blogs. And I'm thinking, and how does that benefit me? To me, I always want to make sure if I'm pitching someone else, and if I teach my clients this, always make sure you're giving something to them first.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So pointing out to them that, should I be a guest on your podcast, or should I be able to write a guest blog for you? I will promote it in all my social media. And part of the reason why I always want my clients to increase their social media following, even if it's Facebook personal page, is so that they have some type of value, their email list, their Facebook page, their Instagram, and everywhere else, that they can grow, just starting to get connections, because then they have some value to add to when they're going to be maybe on a panel, or whether they're doing a presentation somewhere or a blog post for someone else. They then say, I will also share everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's giving value.
Yeah, it is. And I think the rule of thumb goes for social media building and email list building, which is the best time to start building those things is yesterday. I mean, if you had started last year to build your following, you might have 100, 200, 500 more followers than you do today. So people can get discouraged because they're like, oh, I only have 30 or 150, whatever it is. That's not the point. Just start and you'll be that much better off in the future. I totally agree with you as far as credibility and value. I think for people who want to pitch larger stage opportunities, even if that's on a website or if it's in person in a speaking event, a lot of the bigger opportunities are going to actually look to you to help promote their event, either
Yes.
right or wrong, or promote their blog, whatever it might be. And so getting those numbers up, you're absolutely right, Nancy, is critical for people who unfortunately look at things that way and will maybe take somebody who's got 10,000 people versus, you know, some of us who have 1,000 people.
Right.
It makes
right.
a difference.
Well, when I first started building this business, I hired a coach, the coaching business. I hired a coach that had us doing, you probably heard of the summit model, where you interview 21 people who have a large email list, and you're just interviewing them, but you're creating the page that people opt into. So you're getting all those email addresses. Yeah. You're not necessarily considered an expert at the end of that interview, but you've gained the email address and you've given the other person exposure. But the coach that I worked with said, don't take anyone into your summit, which is the interview series, it's called the summit, who doesn't have, they must have at least 10,000 people on their email list. Well, that just didn't sit right with me, because I was reaching out to people who were in the fields that I thought I wanted to coach in, which I've completely changed since then. And we'd have such a great connection. And I loved the person that they were, and I loved their messaging. And then I would say, by the way, how many people do you have on your email list? And some were like 800, 500. Some people had 4,000. And all I'm hearing is my coach in my head going, don't take them unless they have 10,000, because it's a waste of your time. And I just suddenly felt it would be like having a party and only inviting rich people. And that's just not my style. And I had the summits, and I didn't grow my email list that big when I did that, but I was okay with it because I met so many amazing people and so many amazing coaches that they're still friends with me. We all still support each other. So I think it is important to try to go for an interior designer. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Just get the opportunities, because in the beginning is when you're learning.
Yeah. Yes. I think, well, first of all, I think that's what I and probably so many people watching like about you, is that's integrity, and it's not being gluttonous, right? Like, I just want to get whatever I can get out of the opportunity. I know people who run $1 million businesses with 100 people on their email list. I mean, when you create relationships with integrity that you really value, people will exchange money for with you, excuse me. So while the outside might be hungry for the numbers, and people's impression of you might be based on followers and fans. It's not always true to, I need this in order to earn more money.
Right.
And we're talking, if we go after big name entities, they will probably care about that more. But if your niche is working with a very specific, which is what Nancy and I would recommend, market, then those right media outlets might not care about those big numbers as much.
I want to try to give some specifics because it really is hard. When we talk global like this, people are like, just tell me exactly what I should do, right? And I'm like, all right, let me think about it. So I'm going to go back to the local, because a lot of the designers are local businesses. They're not necessarily e-design businesses. If you go down to the town where most of the people in your area hang out, or adjoining areas where you want to do business, because a lot of people say to me, well, where I live, I don't really want to do business. I want to do it at the town next door, So go there and start looking around at the local stores and figure out which one you could add value to their customer base. Right? Yeah. So it could be a little boutique. It could be a furniture store. And you walk in and say, I'm an interior designer. I would love to invite your following for a presentation where I can highlight some of your furnishings.
Yeah, absolutely. The niche is critical there. If you come in and say, I'm an interior designer, I just, want from you, that's not going to resonate as well as coming into the store and saying, hey, I know you serve, let's just take the senior market because that seems to be easier. I know you serve that market. I am an interior designer and I specialize in helping people with downsizing and new room layouts and all that stuff. It's going to resonate more with them. So if you can represent the niche that you've identified, and look, here's the secret. We all fake it at first, and that's okay. And so if you're testing out niches, fabulous. If you go into this store and say something that's going to resonate with them and you don't get anywhere, and the store down the street you say something else to and you do get somewhere, that's proof of concept. That's a beautiful thing.
That's
yeah. So we all do testing in our different ways, right? I might build a Facebook ad campaign and do my testing that way. You might be feet on the street and be talking to people in retail or partners that you're calling on the phone or sending emails to. It's all valuable. You don't have to figure it out overnight. I'm a huge believer in those kinds of tests because I think serendipity happens and you can learn things by accident that are huge money makers in the future.
Yeah, the point is being out there, right? So when I first started art consulting, I was doing home art parties. I never even attended a home party. I don't care if it was jewelry, Avon. I hated home parties. And next thing I know, I'm sitting there having home art parties, laughing because I'm thinking, I never even attended one of these. These are horrible, but I'm going to make it fun. And an interior designer walked into one of my parties. And that changed the entire course of my business. I had never even thought of niching down to interior designers as an art consultant. So the point and the reason why I bring that up is because when you're out there and actually doing something, right? Do something, because you never know what opportunity is going to walk by you and you go like light bulb moment. Why didn't I think of this?
Yeah.
Right?
You don't. I mean, none of us can say, I'm going to, we can have big lofty goals that we can control, but we can't control how other people react to us and what will happen. So you're absolutely right. It's all about trying. The more specific you can get, once you start noticing these signals that things are working, then you follow that path, assuming that's something you're interested in. And you go for it. I can tell you a little bit, Nancy, you and I were talking in the beginning about social media. And so I've had some crazy things happen to me as I was building my social media following. I was sharing with you, Nancy, that Twitter, I have the biggest following on Twitter.
I hate Twitter.
A lot of people hate Twitter. And you might not think Twitter is right for interior designers, but it is if you use it to what it was designed to be.
So tell us what it's designed to be, because it's totally, to me, I'm like, I'm a talker and I'm a texter, but somehow Twitter is painful to me. Yeah. And I rarely find, although Darla Powell is an interior designer and now she runs Wingnut Social. She handles people's Instagrams. She has a whole nother company. She was huge on Twitter.
Yeah. What it's best for is doing some of what we're talking about with getting connections with people. When I was first starting out as a marketing coach, I simply wanted to follow people who were thought leaders in marketing because I wanted to see what their content was. And for me, for whatever reason, maybe it was a stupid thing, but it ended up being a happy thing. I followed them on Twitter. And so I ended up following, I told you I was in marketing for photographers. I ended up following some photography associations, people who were putting out content for my region that was important to me. And I don't remember how many followers I had at the time, but it was probably in the few hundreds. It was pretty low. And I got a direct Twitter message one day from the editor of the largest photography association in the United States. Ooh. And she was looking for someone from her staff had just left. They happened to be writing the marketing column, and she was looking for somebody to fill that role immediately. It was an unpaid position. I didn't make any money from it. But I said, absolutely, I'm going to take that. The publication went to 130,000 photographers in the United States every single month, and I got to have the marketing column in it. I had no idea why I was even doing it. I happen to love to write, and so I was like, okay, I can write this once a month. That's no biggie. Well, I was at least smart enough at the end of every article, I would give people something they could download related to that article on my website. I don't know how I was smart enough to do that, but I did that. So the articles ended up being a huge boost in my website traffic. And because they were downloading something, they had to give me their email address. Mm-hmm. And so I was building my email list from that. Mm-hmm. What I didn't realize is that people tend to cut articles out of magazines and save them. So I would publish a piece that would have a huge spike in website traffic, and a bunch of people would download whatever was mentioned in that particular article. Then I would notice like 4, 5, 6 months later, I'd still get people downloading it. Didn't you recycle that by now? But people keep things and cut out clippings and stuff like that. So it ended up being a wonderful opportunity. It grew my list that I could then market my coaching services to. It could work in the same way for you all. However, if I had known that type of opportunity existed, I totally would have been pitching her to begin with and built that relationship. I got really lucky that she saw a tweet of mine and reached out to me like, hey, would you be interested in this opportunity? Really what I should have been doing is taking the bull by the horns and, direct messaging her and tweeting at her and all of the other association editors in that field. What ended up happening next is because I owned that column, people assumed it was a paid thing. It wasn't. I didn't make any money.
This is real talk, people.
This is real talk. We all do no money. We all do a lot of work into it. So anyway, it paid off, thank God. What ended up happening is the other associations obviously were keeping their eye on each other and what each other was doing. So my name got out to other people. And also internationally, people would look at the American Association and shadow it a little bit in Canada and other places. So I started getting calls like, hey, would you speak at our conference in Canada? And So I started getting paid keynotes to do marketing talks to this niche that I had defined for myself. And so to your earlier point, getting out there is so, you have no idea what can come of it.
So
and yeah, and if I had gotten out there the right way, I am certain that I would have even gotten more out of it than I did. I just got really lucky by getting out there, which I think happens to just about everyone if you're patient enough.
yes.
But if you can be purposeful and say, I'm the authority in this, these are the 12 people that I want to build relationships with. If you get one relationship out of that effort, it could be huge for your business.
Yeah. And one of the key things you said is listing out like 12 people that you really want to connect with, right?
Yeah.
One of the coaches I work with now says it should be 100, right? Who are your top 100? And I'm like, 100, that's a lot of people. But for my clients, I do say, you know what? List out 20 people. List out 20 people or companies that you would like to get a connection into. If you can do something for, and I'll just name, Hans Grohe or Kohler, or, right, you're going to teach people how to use their products or how they can be placed properly into their space. That's, and I'm talking kitchens or baths, or a flooring company, right? To do a webinar or even a PDF on how you can incorporate a specific company's product. That company is going to pay attention. You tag that company in your Instagram or in your Twitter, if you do Twitter. You might have convinced me to relook at Twitter. But we're talking about becoming an authority in your field. And to become an authority in your field, you have to put yourself out there in some way.
Yes, you do. You absolutely do. And it's, I think it's okay to have a big ego about this. And what I mean by that is whether it's 12 people or 100 people, when you're making the list, I just worked on this yesterday. When you're making the list, have some lower level opportunities, I'll call them, but have some real stretch opportunities in there too. Like you might think, Kohler, there's no way Kohler's going to pay attention to me. You never know if Kohler is desperate for content because somebody dropped the ball on something. So it's a lot of being in the right place in the right time for those types of opportunities, but still worth making the list. I worked on this yesterday for myself. So I am working on a book. It's coming out at the end of the year. And
I want to talk about it. I love the name. Tell everyone what the name is. And if anyone has questions for Angela about, and I'm going to tell them the name of the book and it'll explain.
It's Stop Blending In.
Stop blending in. So if anyone has questions about how you can stop blending in, now's your opportunity to ask them also. So if you're listening and you want to ask a question, please do. But tell us about the book.
Yes. So the book is 7 steps to becoming the authority in anything that you want to be the authority in. It goes through some of what we talked about today as far as defining who you are. So a lot of people can't get super clear on that. And then it talks about all the ways that you need to boost yourself and really, to the outside world, become that authority. The biggest, hopefully, takeaway from the book is as soon as you define it, you're it. Now it's about moving and shaking and getting out there. So for me, one of my goals is speaking in 2020. The book will have launched. I look forward to speaking in front of tons of entrepreneurs and hopefully spreading this message. So very few people take advantage of this kind of marketing. You yourself, Nancy, have done this. Look at your success in this niche. Obviously, you're a good proof point that niching down and defining yourself as the authority on something works. So, but not everybody takes advantage of that. And I think it's a huge opportunity for people. People who are brave enough to do it they're gonna, lead the pack as far as success goes.
It's
Yeah, it is. For me yesterday, so I just started on my list of people that I wanted to pitch. I did a lot of research. I spent probably about 30 minutes and I came up with 6. So this is not the type of thing that gets built overnight. But I did send 2 speaking pitches to 2 of the 6, and I look at the dates of their events. So I try to time the speaking about 6 months out because I know that's when they're planning their speakers. So that's why I didn't reach out to the other 4 yet, but I will. It takes time. Nobody should feel like I need to make a list of 100 tomorrow because
it's not happening.
No.
I haven't even finished my 100. That was even too much for me.
Yeah. But if you take a handful, 6 a week, reach out to 2 of them. I mean, that's 2 more than you would do any other week. So
but I still feel like, how do you decide what you're going, I mean, as a coach and as a marketing coach, it's a little different from us. As an interior designer, what can they use to stand out?
So it's all about, when you define that niche, it's all about boosting yourself as to why your body of work represents you being the authority in that niche. So if you can say, I'm the interior designer who's, and I think you told me when we first connected, you have an interior designer in your network who only designs with vegan items.
Yeah,
maybe I made that up, but
no, you're right. She started the vegandesign.org, I think is the name.
Okay.
I apologize if I'm saying it wrong. But yeah, I mean, I'm talking about niching down. I mean, she's animal friendly design. And we asked her once, like, do you do non-animal friendly design? And often she won't even tell her clients that it's animal friendly. And in the end, there was one particular story she told that she said, and at the end, she said the client was thrilled with her design. And she said, and by the way, not one animal died in the process or was harmed in the process of creating all this beautiful stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you pick something that you're really interested in and really deep dive into it and become so knowledgeable in it that you can feel confident in saying you're an expert in this area. And I know the next thing people say, well, there's plenty of people who are an expert in that, but that doesn't mean you're not also.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's, how do you distinguish yourself? What is your style for delivering your message?
Yeah, that's right. I think let's take that as an example because it's so niched. It's easy to set up examples for other people, and that person's going to get some free marketing consulting while we do it. But hopefully other people can pull out ideas.
Yeah.
So I've never heard of a designer who specializes in that. And I was a vegetarian for 25 years. So I was definitely in that world, all over that world. To me, for anybody who's looking to break out of their region, picking a niche like that, not that one, but a niche that could be applied anywhere is beautiful. Because if I saw an article about her, I'm assuming it's a woman.
Yeah.
A woman.
Deborah DeMar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Vegetarian Times magazine or on their website or in their Facebook feed, because I follow them, I would pull her to Philadelphia from wherever she is. Philadelphia is where I am, and have her design my space over anybody else in the area, right?
Because she's speaking right to your beliefs and your lifestyle.
Yes. I have a dentist that I love who's about an hour away from me, who I still go to for any special work that I need. And I probably drive by 150 dental offices because he specializes in, he does something with mercury removal, right? He's like one of the few certified for that in the area. I gave him a lot of money to remove some fillings of mine, but he niched down. He got certified in that. He had proved that he was the expert in it, I believe, right? That's part of authority. And I was willing to bypass everybody else and travel to him. So it can work if you're looking, if you're in an area where you're like, oh, I wish I was in Manhattan. It would be so much easier. you can work on a niche that applies across region to break yourself out of that trouble.
I want to ask everyone who's watching now, do you have a niche? If you do, tell us what it is, because I do think this is one of the hardest things for all my clients. And occasionally they'll quickly, like, feng shui or health and wellness in your home, or spa-like living, or young families, young large families, but it's still hard for them when they start to go to implement. They have that fear of, but that's not all I can do. And I'm always like, ride through it. Just walk, put up a face of somebody who is your ideal client. And every time you're speaking and putting yourself out there in the world, whether it's in writing or on Facebook or on Instagram or wherever you are, act like you're talking to that one person, that one ideal client of yours.
I have a backup plan for people who really have a hard time being so bold as to define it and just go after it full bore. The backup plan is, there is no reason why you can't build I'm going to call it a landing page, but really a singular page on your website that is specific for this niche. Just like we were talking before, do some testing. If you meet a client and you're going to go for it and tell them, I specialize in this, send them to www.angelapointon/this, right? You send them to that page instead of your home page, and you test market this new message. You don't have to redo your entire website from the gate. In fact, maybe that's not the right recommendation. If you're considering, a niche over here or one over here, or I also like this thing, you can build multiple landing pages and use that to facilitate the conversation, not confuse people, but have them go to marketing materials that are specific for what you're telling them, and still feel broad for the time being until you're really comfortable to go after something 150%.
I actually am with Sharon on this one, and thank you everyone for weighing in on what your niche is. The landing page for a specific audience is really an interesting idea, because it doesn't have to be something that's right out there on your website right away. While you're testing it, I have a free exercise on my website called Your Business in Words. And it's a lot about identifying who you are, who you serve, what is special about your process, and what is the final result of what someone can expect. And it's basically an elevator speech. And I say to everyone, all you have to do is know the formula. And if you're in front of an audience of completely different people from your niche, you can change your business in words and your presentation to accommodate if you're looking for business from that audience.
Yeah.
So knowing the formula on how to present yourself, but you can test out different markets, so that it's kind of like a secret landing page goes hand in hand with that. I love that idea.
It does. Another great way to do some testing, I don't know how many people are in BNI, but BNI is a networking group. They're franchised all across the United States and internationally. And you can go to a meeting as a guest. You don't have to pay anything. But what you'll see at those meetings is everybody in the room does a 30-second elevator pitch. Mm-hmm. And I did this for about 6 months. It's where I met Nicole Cole, who introduced us together. She's an interior designer in the Philadelphia area. And it was such a beautiful way for me to test out messages, because I could see right in front of me how people reacted to what I was saying. And I got great feedback when it was broad. When I would go up and say, hey, I'm a marketing coach for entrepreneurs, believe it or not, that was too broad for people. They needed to know, what exactly, are you coaching on websites? Are you coaching on messaging? Are you doing billboards? I needed to answer those questions. So it gave me a forum to practice. There are definitely within that networking group referral partners for interior designers. There's contractors in those groups. There's painters in those groups. There are people who can connect you with customers in your town if you're serving a local market.
Yes.
So I'm not representing BNI. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity to practice those messages and get yourself out there a little bit to do some testing.
Right. And I think you made a good point. I always, I'm a body language trainer as well. And one of the things that I do is look around at the audience and see if what I'm saying is connecting in the way I wanted it to. And here's what scares everyone, and then we'll answer this question. You're so afraid to be out there and try things out, but really that's how you learn, is by trial and error. We've all, anyone who you're looking at, any other designer you may be looking at who you say they're really big and they must be making a ton of money, or now they're on panels, how did that happen? It was trial and error for everyone in the beginning. It really was. And some people it's an easier path than others, but that doesn't mean you should stop trying. And that testing and observing the reaction, not getting stuck in your own head and just being overwhelmed with, oh my God, but actually looking around and connecting with people and seeing the responsiveness is really going to give you a lot of information as to whether you're nailing your messaging or not. And whether maybe you have to go home and change it and get over that whole, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, it didn't go as well. Guess what? We all started somewhere. I remember, and I've said this before, the first couple of clients that I put artwork in their houses, oh my God, I can't even believe they paid me for it now that I look back. They were happy and I was one step ahead of them. At least I knew how to get it up there. And I learned everything I needed to learn to get better and better at it. And that's, you know, why people like you and I exist, to help people get better and better at things. So Sharon is asking, what is a landing page typically populated with? It's basically, it's a web page.
It's a web page, so picture it as a single page. It's a really great question. So I'm going to give you the top to bottom of page. If I were designing it for you, here's what I would include. If you are thinking of a particular niche, definitely the photography on the page should represent that niche, right? So we call it a hero image, right? The main image at the top of the page should very quickly visually marry with the niche that you'll be telling this page about, right? Mm-hmm. I would put on there a headline. You know, I think what you were talking about just a second ago is acting as if, right? So even if you're small now, everybody who's big acted as if they were big before they were big. So you're going to do that same thing on this web page. The headline, if you choose to use words on a page, words are really important for Google, so please use words. Yes. Act as if the best interior designer at blah, blah, blah. You know, award-winning interior designer for blah, blah, blah. Even if you haven't won awards for that particular niche, it's okay. You're acting.
Won an award somewhere else. You can say award-winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And then because words are important, I would encourage at least trying to write 300 to 500 words on that page below that hero image that describes what you do within that niche and your process, okay? Other things to be below that are important on the page, any client testimonials, even if they're not within that niche, it's okay. Third-party validation is really important to people feeling really comfortable. So if you have certifications, awards, client testimonials, all of that below that copy would be wonderful. And then at the bottom of the page, there's got to be a way to reach out to you, right? So we always end the page with a form. Super short. We don't want to ask everybody everything about themselves, just first name, email address, maybe a comments box, maybe a phone number if you want to call them. Mm-hmm. Top right of the page should also be a contact button that hopefully can go down to that same form or just go to your regular contact page. That's okay. And if it's okay with you to get phone calls, I would put your phone at the top of the page too. Some people don't like filling out web forms. Some people like picking up the phone and calling instead. So that they're about, of course, if you have a portfolio of images, including that on the page. If not, that's okay too. If you're just starting out in a niche and you're just doing some testing, just that hero image is going to be enough.
Love it. Love it. So Jennifer's like, this is amazing info, and she is going to have to watch it again. And I totally get that. This was information packed. Do you believe it's 5:30?
No, you said it would go fast, and it sure did.
I know my guests always, you were like, it's okay. But sometimes my guests are like, really? What are we going to talk about for an hour? You didn't say that, but some guests do. And I'm like, trust me, it just happens. And it's always helpful to have interactive audience watching live. But if you're watching on replay and you have questions, just make sure, and I always say this, put hashtag replay. And this way, when I see, a matter of fact, last week's, I think, has a couple of questions that I never went back and answered. So Angela and I will be checking the comments and trying to answer questions for you if you end up asking questions that we weren't able to answer today. So Angela, tell them, thank you, first of all, for being here and giving us all this valuable information on becoming the authority within your market, which is what you do. And again, your book name and Stop Blending In. I love it. Is it out yet?
It is in final preparation to go to layout and be up on Amazon.com. So it'll be out by the end of the year. Stop Blending In. In the meantime, if anybody's curious, you can connect with me on Twitter at Angela Pointon, or you can go to my website, angela-pointon.com.
All right, I'm going to have to get over to Twitter. You know what? I'm everywhere else. I might as well be more active there. I'm on there. I just never check. People, like I said to you before we went live, people could be talking to me and I'm just not even paying attention.
I'm going to go connect with you now, Nancy.
Oh my God, if you send me a message, give me about 6 months to respond. So thank you everyone for watching. Enjoy your weekend here in New York. It's supposed to be a beautiful weekend.
It is.
I hope it's not one of our last ones before, the weather starts changing, but I'm really excited. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, Angela. And we'll see everyone next week on Weekend Wind Down with Nancy.
Nancy.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.